Welcome to Calgary Conversations, a podcast of the City of Calgary where we aim to have frank conversations with city leaders about the issues and topics impacting Calgarians.
Please stand behind the yellow line.
My name is Jose Rodriguez. I am the leader of Media Relations and Employee Communications at the City, and I'm happy to be your host. Welcome back to Calgary Conversations, and today we're pretty excited to have a topic we wanted to talk about for a while, but the timing just has never worked out for us. So today we're super fortunate to have Wendy Tynan, a director with Green Line, and we're going to talk a little bit about Green Line. So Wendy, welcome to the show. First and foremost, what is it that you do for Green Line?
I have the distinct pleasure of leading the team who is building the Green Line LRT.
Wow. That's just a bit of a big build.
It is a big build. It's the largest infrastructure investment and largest LRT construction that the city has ever undertaken. So an incredible opportunity for the city.
So with that said, where are we when it comes to building the Green Line?
So in March of 2025, the Green Line LRT, phase one of it was approved by the city, the province, and the government of Canada. So we have $6.248 billion. And everyone agreed to get going on construction in the southeast. So that's from Shepherd, which is, for most Calgarians, the reference point I give is about Deerfoot and 130th Avenue, into the event center area. So that's where construction has started. And then everyone agreed there needed to be a little bit more work through 2026 to work through that connection into the downtown. And a year from now, in early 27, we will have a construction decision and be able to start adding that into the construction plans.
Yeah, I think we broke ground in June, right?
We had a fantastic groundbreaking event at the site of our future maintenance and storage facility. So this is like the house and the main super service garage for all of the vehicles. So we have 74 acres in the southeast. And so it's a massive structure. And we did the groundbreaking, and I teased at the time that the equipment that was behind us and all the shots weren't props. They were really ready to mobilize. And so construction started immediately after. We have construction underway in 5 locations along the southeast and are in active procurement right now, and we'll be awarding all of the rest of our contracts this year. And there'll be a bunch more construction starting later this year. So it's exciting.
We've been talking about Green Line for a while. Can you maybe run us through how we got to here?
So the story of Green Line is actually about 15 years old. And some of the original thinking around the Green Line started back in 2011. And the city was trying to solve 2 problems. One was that the southeast quadrant was grossly underserved by fast, reliable transit. And so they needed to look at options to be able to connect in this very growing segment of the city into either the rest of the LRT lines, into downtown connections, and into employment centers and where people needed to go. At the same time, the north central quadrant, so if you think of like all the way up Centre Street, very active transit users, but the buses were now reaching capacity, and you can move from buses to BRT to LRT. And so they were really looking at, there's a business case now to be able to support that move to LRT. So the thinking is that one continuous line from the far southeast in Seaton all the way up to 160th Avenue in north central Calgary could be solved with the idea of a Green Line LRT, building on the color themes of the red and blue lines. And so in 2015, there was a federal election, and the federal government committed about $1.5 billion towards delivering on that vision. And a couple of years later, the province followed suit, and the city had come in as well with funding. And so that was where the funding envelope came from. Was back starting in 2015. And then through that process, it's been iterative design work and really trying to understand, what are we building? How much is it going to cost, and be able to build within this envelope? So there were early ideas of, tunneling underneath the Bow River and, how are we connecting in all of these places? And, costs are a very real issue in these mega projects. And so 2020, council made the decision to look at phase 1 being from Shepherd, so where we're starting from now, up to 16th Avenue and Centre Street North, and with a bridge over top of the river. And so that was going to be the first phase. And the way our funding is with the province and the government of Canada is that anytime we change the project scope or funding, it goes back for a review. And so the province took a look at it and they said, we've got some questions. And so they undertook a year-long provincial review. At the same time, the city had brought on the Green Line board, which was an independent board of experts, technical, financial, legal, who had done this scale of mega project work before too. And so they started to really look through, how do we build within this envelope that's been given to us? And if you think back to 2021, post COVID escalation, all those pieces, and each percentage of escalation was impacting us by about $100 million. So it was really significant swings. So at the time, the board said, we're going to focus on building from Shepherd to Eau Claire and sort of build out that phase one component. And then if the costs and risks don't materialize, then we'll cross the river and get up to 16th Avenue. So really since 2021, the project has been focused on that Shepherd to Eau Claire piece. We as a project team, began working through advancing the design. And this was all based on about 2 kilometers of tunneling that would connect in from the Beltline area from the Future Event Center station into Eau Claire. And as we were working through and progressing the design, we got to about 60% design at the beginning of 2024. And it was very clear we had very significant cost pressures. We went to the province, we went to the government of Canada, and they confirmed that there would not be additional funding. And so we looked at what could we build within the envelope. And with an additional $705 million from the City of Calgary that they contributed. So they're now the major contributor to the project. They spend, just under 45% is with the city, proposed building the core. So really focusing in on building in that downtown connection through to Linwood-Milliken. So it wouldn't get all the way to Shepherd. And then as funding allowed, keep building, but build the most technically complex part first and then keep adding, which is very similar to how the red and blue lines have been built. So again, we resubmitted through the funding agreement the changes. And at that time, the province, so this was September of 24, said, we just don't feel that there's enough value for Calgarians. We're concerned about what we're delivering. And so they withdrew their funding. And certainly the city does not have the financial capacity to carry a $6 billion project on their own. And so we moved to wind down the project. Happily, we were able to bring the province back to the table and agreed to keep progressing the design in the southeast that everyone agreed to about where that part was at, recognizing that we were talking about a 1.5 kilometer section of a 46 kilometer vision that everyone agreed to. And so the province brought on their own consultant, AECOM, to look at what was another option to get into the downtown. And so in December of 24, they proposed a concept plan of an elevated alignment. And so January of 25, council approved moving forward with construction in the southeast and spending 2026 to really build out the functional plan, to validate the provincial cost estimate. And the province at the same time also asked to ensure that there was broad public support from Calgarians. And so that's where we got to. And the province agreed to the plan and the federal government agreed to the plan. And so that's where we're at. Construction is underway in the southeast and the functional plan and engagement and cost validations underway in the downtown. And a year from now, at the beginning of 27, we're going to start building into the downtown too. So the goal is to start building and keep building. We've got 46 kilometers to go. Wow.
Well, you just went through 15 years in about 5 minutes. So that was pretty impressive.
Well, it's a long answer, but as you said, there's a long history, right? And I think it's fair, like Calgarians have heard so much about the Green Line that we've gotten to the point where they can move their questions to be from when is the Green Line going to be built to like, what is all of this construction going on and to do it because we actually are building it now.
Now you touched on an important part there, which is the engagement about how we're going to get through the downtown. Where are we with that?
So the engagement has just kicked off in February, and we are doing 3 different types of engagement. So there's been one-on-one meetings with some of the directly impacted stakeholders, those along the alignment along 10th Avenue and down 2 Street. But we really want to hear from all Calgarians about their thoughts on it, because certainly there's different impacts if you're living adjacent to the alignment versus you're a transit user and you're being on the connector. And so there's online survey through the Engage portal, there's virtual online sessions, and the team is also setting up like public info sessions where people can just drop in. And this is phase 1 of engagement. They will take everything that they heard, they will factor that into the technical review, into the design progression, and then come back to Calgarians again, middle of this year too, to re-engage where are we at and make sure that the voices of Calgarians are being built into the plan.
And now I had a chance to look at the new trains. They're very different from our existing trains. You talk about those?
Oh, I'd love to. So the trains are currently being manufactured right now. And it's a different train than what Calgarians are used to. And so what we have right now in the red and blue lines are what they call high floor trains. And so all of the equipment that powers the train is below, so it raises it up. And so we have low floor vehicles, so the equipment is on top. But they are so much safer, so much better accessibility for Calgarians to access them. And it's really because as you're getting into the trains, you're not on a meter high platform. It's not a lot bigger than stepping onto a city curb. So when you think about the station footprints, it's way more similar to like a BRT station than the large concrete structures that we see along the alignment. And, going back to that overall 46-kilometer vision, when that's built, we're going through 27 different communities. And so how these stations look and feel and how people access them makes a huge difference. But then, in the Calgary way, because we always like to make sure that Calgarians have the best of all worlds, is that we're getting all of the functionality of the high floor trains, which is specifically around the speed that they can go to. So, which is about 80 kilometers an hour. And we've got a lot of distance to cover on this line. With the look and feel and benefits of the low floor vehicle. So we've sort of bespoked a version for ourselves, but we're getting the best of both worlds for Calgarians.
Very cool. And if you can imagine pulling in on one of these sort of hot rod, hot looking trains.
It's a sexy train there.
It's a sexy train into Grand Central Station and looking around, and there's the new event center, all the Stampede. Just down the street is the new Olympic Plaza, which will be coming at some point. It really is changing the look and feel of the city, isn't it?
It is. It's just so exciting. And you think about the opportunities that if the province is able to realize, their vision for passenger rail and how we're connecting people into the city too, right? And all of the development that's coming around. And I often think this is so much more to me than a transit project. This is really city building because of all of these different opportunities. And I envision 10 years from now, you're sort of standing by 11th Avenue and Stampede Trail, and you're kind of looking around and, this is what a world-class city looks and feels like. And I'm always very bullish on Calgary. And so world-class cities deserve world-class infrastructure. And that's what we're doing. And the city's making huge investments in all of these pieces. And it's exciting.
It's very, very exciting. Now, when you're building something this big, potential environmental impacts have to factor into the equation. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit?
Certainly. Construction of any nature is going to be disruptive in its initial phase of environmental impacts. But we're really focused on those longer term impacts. And this was a key requirement of our federal funding. So once we're running, we'll save about 37,000 GHGs a year, and we'll be able to shift about 4.8 million people from vehicles. So when you look at the totality of ridership throughout the year onto the LRT. So those impacts alone are huge, right? It's certainly also considerations as we're into construction. The alignment goes through known contaminated lands, the fjord lands, the former Imperial Oil site. And so really making sure that we're thoughtful and working with our contractors around means and methods and making sure that we're not making a situation worse as we're building it. We have 2 river crossings, the Bow and the Elbow. I often joke I've never learned so much about the requirements of fish and how we build around them. But, those are all really important environmental considerations and really making sure that we're being as, aware and sensitive to the needs too. But I also think of the environmental benefits like beyond just like the GHGs. And along the alignment, we're building, I think it's like 6.7 kilometers of new multi-use pathway. And even where our station locations are, there's about 140,000 people that will live within a 10-minute walk of the station. So you think about like quality of life and how people are being able to access and move around their communities. Those all benefit out on those environmental fronts too. And from pure math, that as soon as you have 18 people on a train and diverting them from vehicles, you've made the business case better for an environmental impact. So when you think about the capacity that we will have, it's certainly very clear, but there's going to be some really real ways that Calgarians will experience the benefits beyond just the tangible ways that we would normally measure environmental benefits.
I think it was Yogi Berra that said predictions are really hard, especially predictions about the future. Mm-hmm. So what's your timeline look like? When can I get on a Green Line and get off a Green Line?
Yeah, so we will have revenue service in 2031. And wow. We are scheduled. Everything is mapped out to having riders on the trains in 2031. We have built out, so every key decision, so from which packages and what construction starts first, right? And how we're sequencing everything is all based on that date. And one of the key pieces that gets built in that schedule is that the actual construction needs to be done, and there needs to be enough time for testing and commissioning and making sure that Calgary Transit is ready to actually operate the trains. And, our first order of vehicles will deliver 28 vehicles, and each train needs 1,000 kilometers on test track to it. So, what sections are we building first? So we're building first in the southeast, like as we sequence through this year and into next of awarding the contracts, so that we have the longest sections to be able to start running the trains going back and forth too. But 2031, the trains will run. And that's to the event center. We will event center. Yeah, we will work through as we have the decision on the downtown. And then certainly we'll be looking to drive that schedule to be that connection point, because into the event center is not where Calgarians need to get to. There will need to be some interim uses and buses until we're really ready, but we'll be looking for every possible way to expedite that part of the project.
Any fearless predictions on when downtown might be finished?
We don't know yet. As truthfully as soon as practicably possible. That will be some of the things that we look at too, is our contracting strategy. What are the best ways to move design forward? Are there ways that we can get some of the early construction going while design is being finalized? We won't have that, but that will likely be part of the decision next year as we really look at what does that path forward look like. But it's too soon to tell, because we need to know what we're building and then how we're going to contract it.
And it's important, I guess, maybe to remind folks that we're still talking about a grand vision from Seton to 160th, right? This definitely is a part of that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. This is just a phase of it. And so when we actually went to council in January of 25, gave them 10 recommendations and all these different pieces. But the first one was that there was an endorsement of that full vision from Seton all the way to 160th. And that's what the province and the government of Canada also agreed to. The second key piece of it was starting construction immediately in the southeast, and then the timelines that we've talked about for the downtown. And then the third piece was that after they've made that decision to begin construction in the downtown, to direct administration to start working on that next sort of 5 kilometers from Shepherd to Seton, or focus efforts to keep going north, or perhaps do both. But that will be a council decision in 27. As I started off saying, the need is only growing. And so we need to be ready. We need to have as much work done as possible. land purchase, design work done so that when the funding becomes available, we're at as ready as possible to get going on it.
Wendy, I've learned so much. I'm wondering if there's anything I forgot to ask you or something you'd like to add.
One of the things that is really important to the project too is how we're working with the communities and businesses along the alignment. And I think it's going to be important that the team is always really open and honest about what are the construction impacts. And this isn't a minor road repair or a couple of months. Like, we're going to be in people's communities for years. And so really making sure that Calgarians know we are building this for them. It's not a project we're trying to do to them. And really making sure that they understand that what we're doing, why we're doing it, and that they have confidence that we're going to mitigate the impacts for them. But we're really, really focused on making sure that we're able to provide that support to them through a very long but exciting construction phase.
Awesome. Well, thank you for spending time with me.
Well, our pleasure. And we'll look forward to keeping Calgarians informed of our progress, and really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us today. As always, we value your feedback, so please reach out to us at calgaryconversations@calgary.ca and tell us what topics you'd like covered and questions you'd like answered. Until next time, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and if you see someone without a smile today, give them yours. Take care.